Welcome to our special edition of Saturday Morning Live right now on Thursday morning. And we'll be welcoming John Seeley, MD, back to our show. We didn't quite get to finish our visit last time, and we'd actually prepared to do a four-part series because John has such great information and is willing to share his life story and experiences and how he's been working on healing and growing through the process and becoming a highly effective resource for folks in need. So let me get my engineer back over here. Engineer, sir, I need you over here. You need to look for John in the booth and click him into the show. Oh, he's not there? Okay. Um, well, I need you to stay here with me till, yeah. Um, all right. So we're going to go ahead and we are going to talk about some things. I'm going to go ahead and do the introduction and the opening as I always do. And we have our guests, our sponsors rather, who make this show possible and a lot of the other things that we do. And first on our list is Pat Garrett in the Pat Garrett Amphitheater. Pat is a heck of a great guy. He's a good friend for the past 20 years, and he's actually my mentor. So if you have complaints about why Sal is in show business or doing whatever, send them to 1-800 PG pgamphitheater.com and let him know you're disgruntled. And he'll probably fire me from his mentor program. Actually, I'm not sure he knows he's mentoring me. Actually, Pat is so great. He has launched several careers, and he's the kind of guy he doesn't look for anything in return. He's just doing what he does because it's the right thing to do. And Pat is a great contributor to not only country music but also society, the local town where in Strausstown, where he has that beautiful sheepskin shop, and the amphitheater is also located there. We want to talk about Arby's of Pine Grove. Arby's over in Pine Grove is a really great sponsor, working really well together to promote Intervene, which, as you know, is our effort, our spearhead, if you to end veteran suicide, and we work to reduce veteran suicide and also support the survivors. You know, the whole thing is such a tragedy, and we need to be mindful and aware and present and available for the survivors. Is there's no way to describe it. Um, so we'll leave that where it is, and just know that we do need to have resources available. Um, we also partner with the Pharaohs Car Club of Lebanon. And Pharaohs is actually a national car club started out in California, I believe 1934. And it's grown, it's coast to coast. And I'd venture to say there are some international clubs as well of the Pharaohs Car Club. We recently did a fantastic car show over at Arby's at Pine Grove on the parking lot. And we had like 3 weeks from conception of, hey, can we do this, to actually doing it. And it was a beautiful, magnificent car show. We had a parking lot that would comfortably hold 50 cars, and we had over 71 on the lot, and another 30 that turned around because there was nowhere to go. And I believe John, I'm getting the signal John is here. John, welcome to the show.
Hey, good to see you. Good to be here.
You have to, you have to click. uh, There's a
I'm here.
up on the top right. There should be a little person. Oh,
It says I'm here.
okay. I can't hear him either.
Wow.
All right. That must be on his end then.
No, I'm not muted.
Um, I'm actually
Hang
not.
on.
Okay.
Try this again. Can you hear me?
Okay. John is backstage. And we're we're working to get John in the show as well. Um, so, John, until we actually get you live in the show, we'll go ahead on, and I want to talk about uh, Veterans Row and the Veterans Sheepskin for Veterans project and program. We have sheepskins available, gloves and hats, and some beautiful seat covers, as well as bike seat covers, and we have chair covers and things of that nature for folks to buy. And the line is the line of sheepskin products is sheepskins for vets, and the proceeds also help us to go ahead.
Can you hear me?
No, that's okay. If you can hear him, then he's there. John, welcome to the show. Okay, we're uh, we're going through the trials and tribulations here in this brand new studio with things bouncing everywhere. So, I want to welcome you to the show, John. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing well. Can you hear me now? Evidently, you can't.
Okay. Um,
Testing one, two,
Set
three.
that
I'm looking.
computer
My
down in
my
front of me here
mic shows that it's
so I
on.
can see it. John, I'm not picking up your audio.
Um,
Um,
I'm looking on the screen on yours of me on your screen, and it
I'm
shows
not
me
picking up
talking.
your audio.
It shows the volume.
All right, you know what? We're gonna go ahead and we're gonna bag this show for the moment. We're in a brand new studio and experiencing some brand new technical difficulties, and they're kind of beyond repair at the moment. Yeah, full of surprises. So I want to thank you for tuning in. I see you, John. Can John talk to me? Can you hear me?
I hear you fine. Can you hear me?
I can see you.
I wish you could hear me.
Unplug that. Okay, I can see you now, John. Let me see.
I'm playing
Give
with
me
my
just one
device settings,
second
and
here. I'm going to kill my
they seem to
camera
be
for a
working.
second. Okay. All right, there we go. Pull that plug out for the in number 6. Pull that cord out so I can plug it in here. Let's plug it in here. It doesn't. Okay. All right, John.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. I can hear him, Mr. Engineer. I can hear John. I can hear John. Okay, we are here. Finally able to welcome John to the show. Good Lord. Um, I'm gonna send Pat Garrett to complain about myself as well. Uh, but John, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm glad to be here. I know that we both share a common interest in reducing the number of veteran suicides.
Absolutely. In fact, the let me just move this a little bit. Um, we've known each other for a couple of years, and I'm familiar with some of your life's experiences and the books that you've written, but nobody tells it quite like the owner. Um, Tell us about yourself. Give us an introduction, John, if you would, please.
Sure. I'm a number one best-selling author, international motivational speaker. Um, I've gone through a lot of challenges in my life, and I've studied and learned how to overcome them. So my goal is to share that wisdom with other people. Unfortunately, I've had 12 of my friends commit suicide in the last 40 years, and I ended up becoming an expert because of that. And originally, my best friend committed suicide 40 years ago, and I had no skills at all, and it actually gave me PTSD because I found him 2 days later, and I was shocked because I knew him so well, and I didn't expect that that was a possibility. And ongoing, flash forward through a lot of changes and challenges in my life, I had to develop skills to heal and to let go of the trauma that I've
Wow.
experienced. And most recently, I nearly died a little over 2.5 years ago. And unfortunately, I woke up with no memory in an ICU. And I literally thought I literally made a phone call and said, "Help, I've been kidnapped, call the police." That's the best I could figure. And I was traumatized again. So I've used these skills to recover. And I've written books about it that will help other people to do that. So that's exactly what I'm trying to do, is trying to get the books and the information to the people that need it most. And so we're doing actually a veterans and first responders book drive to help the people who experience trauma and to give them skills to take that next step and overcome it.
Tell us a little bit more about the veterans book and first responders. And I want to commend you for including first responders because I know they have experiences that are beyond description as well. So thank you for including that. Can we talk a little bit more in detail about that particular book?
Sure. Well, I wrote the book Second Chances: Transforming Trauma to Triumph as I was going through my second episode of PTSD. I knew what was happening, but I couldn't. I was experiencing it. I was just trying to come to terms with what was happening, and by doing so, by writing it as it was happening, I wanted the people who are going through their own traumas to realize that they're not alone, and that you can get PTSD from non-combat situations. I know other veterans and certainly first responders that have had it because of just the witnessing of the challenges they have in life, or the actual traumas that they've gone, to help others with. And so the second part of the reason I wrote that book is because I wanted the people around the people going through the PTSD to understand what it's like, because most people don't have the words to express what it feels like when they're going through it. Well, this way they could read that, the people that are around the people having the trauma, and they could have at least a little feel of what it's like, what they're going through, and maybe a better understanding, and be able to be better connected with them. And so for me, it was a twofold thing. I wrote another book called Get Unstuck Now, The Simple Guide to Restart Your Life. And that literally is, and here's the how-to. And the key to that book is I did not explain why the things work. You don't need to know the theory behind why something works. You just do what it says, and
Right.
you'll feel better. And so it's written like a mini workbook. In fact, there is a new book coming out that is a companion workbook for it, to make it easier for people to express themselves and to release the trauma. But the idea of that one is I give you some simple steps, and I don't say that they're easy. There's a difference between simple and easy. Simple means I reduced it so it's not complex. You don't have to understand all the things behind it, but just do what I'm suggesting, and your life will start getting better. There's actually questions in the back of each chapter to basically say, okay, what you just read, here's how does it apply to your life? And so what I even
Okay.
tell people is the first time I want you to read the whole book through without answering the questions. You can look at them, but don't answer them, because you can get stuck on those questions. So you read the whole book through so you understand the concept. Then you go back and reread it a second time. And this time you answer the questions. And that's where the rubber meets the road. That's where people will find the benefit, because suddenly their life will start getting better.
It's involving them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's meant to
Yeah.
be interactive. And I even wrote one for kids. And we're about to release a new one, Get Unstuck Now for kids. But there's a Get
Okay.
Unstuck for kids, and it's because I was thinking, boy, if I had this information when I was a kid, my whole life would be different. So in that book, not only does it have the adult section, but it's got the kids section, which has a story involving children who are learning the concept of the chapter in the story. And then there's questions at the end of each chapter, and it's meant to be read with adults. So whether it's a
Okay.
teacher or parent, one of the questions is, as the adult, tell the child how you learned this concept. And some will say, I just learned it with them. I was reading it and I just learned it too. Some others will say, when I was your age, here's what happened. And we as children, we picture our adults as having a perfect life, and they never had to go through what we're going through. But yeah, they did. And so this helps to
Right.
connect the adult and the child together. and a bond exists, because all of a sudden the child goes, oh, you had to go through that too? Like, yeah, and so
Yeah.
I think that's a very powerful message that we want to send. Give the children these skills, which really need to be taught in grade school, so that as they face their life's challenges, they can help to deal with them as they go through it and not have to suffer sometimes trauma. Because the new book that I'm writing for next year is on
Okay.
childhood PTSD.
Well, I relate what you're saying to my own life experiences, and it's like I think about my parents, and you're exactly right. It was kind of like they live this perfect life. They have all the answers, and we can't relate. But I can see where doing what you're describing in your book would change all that and make a difference. To where you can relate to your parents and know you're not alone. Trust that your parents are more than just how would I say disciplinary
Well,
to
I
guide
think
and lead
I think
and,
we
and
just imagine that
understand.
they have all the answers, and they oftentimes are just guessing as much as we do. As adults, we kind of understand that now. But my parents went through the Great Depression. They actually met in World War II. My mom was one of the first women in the American Army, and my dad was obviously in the American Army as well. They met in North Africa during the war, and then Italy after that. And so they went through literally a world war, as well as the Great Depression. So they experienced lots of different traumas and challenges, and then they had all the kids. And so um, for them, they were still flying by the seat of their pants, because for generations, the parents were literally learning from their parents, who learned from their parents, and they just kept passing on the same lessons, and oftentimes nothing was really gained; it was just repeated. Whereas we're one of the first generations where we had psychology that came to the forefront to help with skills to understand what's going on and how to change it. And since I went back, and you see that little MA behind my name, that's because I have a master's in psychology. And the idea is I learned all these skills for me. And I wanted to understand me and how to make my life better. And then it turned out I realized that in the studies I've done, reading literally more than 1,000 books on self-help, and working with the people who wrote a lot of the books, and finding out what the secret was to healing and to making things better. And I'm still doing that. I mean, mine is a ongoing learning process. I've not
Right.
given up. And I know that that's what a lot of people are afraid of. Sometimes, especially in the military, you're kind of um, you're kind of tied, because if you reach out for help, sometimes that can kill your career.
Right.
And so the idea is those are the healthy people. They should not have their career killed. Rather, it should be the opposite. They should be able to excel. And so I want to give them the skills. And sometimes they can begin with my books by going, oh, well, if I can start with that on my own, then, and at some point you get comfortable enough. I mean, I had so much trauma, I finally reached out and got professional help. And I had to go through several therapists to find the right one, because they're not all the same. Uh,
Right.
and some are not skilled in dealing with trauma. And that's what you want to look for, by the way, is when you're choosing a therapist, you want to find someone that actually understands trauma. And most people that are therapists that understand trauma have gone through trauma.
Let's stay with this for a little bit, if we can. Talking about therapists, and we had talked before about making that connection with a therapist, and it may take, like you just said, several therapists till you find the one that you actually connect with. So it's not a good or bad or positive or negative. It's just a fact,
Right. In
you
fact,
know.
the first therapist I went to, halfway through the second session, he goes, I think you're over my head. And right then, those are not
It's
words you want to
scary,
hear
right?
playing. But in fact, I know more now than he did then, because of what I studied. And but again, it's when people are trained, because not all people are the best qualified, but not all people are actually studied in that type of therapy. Some people are they're skilled in relationships, and they're skilled in business things, but they're not necessarily trauma specialists. And so you want to find someone that's really got the wherewithal to deal with that. And that's why I starting with my books, which by the way, I'll send you links and you can post them because they're
Okay.
all available on Amazon. But the idea is I want to give people some tools to start the process off and maybe then feel more comfortable about opening up to people. Because I know a lot of people, like my parents, did not talk to me about their experiences during the war. And I know a lot of people. I was on the verge of being drafted into Vietnam, and literally they ended the draft that year. My number was already pulled, and I would have been going. And a number of my friends did go, and relatives. So I understand more what was going on, but just being in a situation, whether it's a war situation, just stressful situation through life, you can encounter emotional upsets that are not the kind that you're taught how to deal with. And I've gone through so many
Exactly.
trainings to find out how to deal with that because, again, I did it for me. But
Right.
then it turned out that I realized the benefit was most people don't do what I've done. Most people have not studied for 30 plus years to find out what you can do about getting your life to be better. And so I've got all different, people I've learned from. And, I think it's important. Um, I'm trying to do a shortcut for the people that you don't have to go through all what I went through to find out that information, but you can start with the books and then maybe, do some therapy after that, because you'll be more ready because I remember one of the things that was stopping me from going through therapy. I thought if I opened up, it would be like a dam breaking, and I would my life would be out of control, and that's why I held back for a decade.
I
And
get it.
that's not the case. You do open up and things do flow, but it's not where you become completely immobile. Um, you might have a temporary, day or two, but believe it or not, things start moving better. So I know that fear probably stops a lot of people from going through because they know how much they've been holding back, and they're so afraid to share anything because they think, a couple drops and all of a sudden the dam breaks and everything flies out. It's not usually the case, and it usually ends up being a lot more smooth as far as a process to help heal than you'd think. But it's not an instant, switch thrown
Right.
in.
Let me ask you this, John. Um, my personal experience, I was so damaged. To me, I was right. I didn't see a problem with me and my behavior, which was a result of everything. I was fortunate enough to have a friend who was a judge who suggested I get some type of evaluation, professional. How would we how would we know as somebody, or how would we be able to get to the understanding that we need help?
A lot of what we do first, there's two messages here. One is there's denial, because denial is actually a reaction to stress. And again, as a society, we were taught when I first had my PTSD episode, it was my message was they told me suck it up. You know, that's
Mhm.
that's how life is. It's hard. That's the way yeah, he's dead. Get over it. And like
Right.
that's not
Welcome to reality.
yeah, that's not what's good for you. And the thing is, your behavior will shift. Things will come out, and it won't come out in a convenient way. I might add that. But the idea is denying it doesn't help the situation. It's a temporary fix because I don't know what to do and I don't know how to deal with it. That's why you want to reach out for help. That's the key. But second, when you're self-medicating, which is what a lot of addiction ends up being, it's really self-medicating. It's like I can't take this pain. I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to start taking drugs, or I'm going to drink, or I'm going to
Right.
gamble,
Live
whatever. There's lots of
live in
different.
a much more comfortable world.
Yeah, and the thing is, that's your answer because that's all the skill you have. And believe me, as men particularly, we are not taught about dealing with emotions. Women, they grow up with a emotional support group. They're friends that they can talk to about emotions.
Mm.
Guys, we don't go around saying, "Wow, I feel bummed because of this and that." again, the message coming back with you, you're a pussy, suck it up. Like,
Right.
no, it's like they're the people that want and need the help. And if they don't get it, then oftentimes, okay, what can I do about it? How can I numb that pain? And, I was a drug counselor. And when I was talking with him, I'd say, addiction is not the problem. It's a problem, but it's not the problem. The problem is you have mental, physical, or emotional pain that you don't know how to deal with. And that's
Right.
part of what the books I've written about are, to try to give you the skills to begin the process of dealing with it. And then ideally, again, you get some outside help that is skilled, that can guide you to release this in a healthy way.
That's an excellent point. And I just had the thought there are a whole group of folks who feel like taking away the drug or the alcohol is the solution, but it doesn't even begin to address the why, which is what you're talking about. So, we have like a whole new problem going on there. Now you have it raw.
Well, yeah, because what people don't realize is you're taking away the numbing effect. So all of a sudden, these emotions that you've been pushing down are going to come bubbling up, and that's usually the fear. Is like,
That's a
if they don't
dangerous
know how to control it,
position.
it can come out like a volcano, or it can come out a little seeping at a time, or something in
Right.
between. And without the skills, it can cause quite a lot of damage, in relationships and work and whatever. So that's why when you transition, and I have thoughts on how to transition out of addictions, but it's also about getting the counseling you need to deal with those problems that caused you to want to numb it in the first place, and that's where the real benefit is. And so, and in the Get Unstuck Now book, that's part of what I was doing with people. I was trying to guide them to have the mindset to move forward, and then also, and here's some processes you can do that can help you to let go of some of that in a healthy way, and then hopefully get it to a place where you feel comfortable. Okay, I can, find somebody else I can talk to.
Now, along the process, we've been talking, not you and I'm not referring to, I mean, the Project Intervene, we've been talking about the process of veteran suicide, and the fact that it's not just a spur of the moment decision. And we also want to include first responders and then pretty much anyone who's finding themselves in that valley can relate. And we can describe it as a process starting out with loss of sense of purpose. I've got no purpose. I've no goals, no direction. And I find that that's a starting point, and then the progress goes from there to depression, and that has its own degrees, and all of it is definitely affected, if not triggered, by the life experiences that we're talking about now, the trauma. Is
Yeah.
that
Well, I tell you, I look at suicide as a permanent solution to a temporary problem.
yes?
And
You
the
preach that.
reason that people uh, don't um, don't realize that that's the case is because from their point of view, they can't see an answer. They can't find a solution, which is why I really suggest people um, reach out, because you find someone who's trained in this. We can see the bigger picture and we can help you to see it. But more importantly, we can guide you to find uh, um, an understanding of how to move forward. You don't have the skills. That's what we're here for. And actually, I want to tell you something else. So, because I've experienced so much suicide, I became an expert, unwilling at first. And I wrote an article for a national publication. And the editor called me and said, "We'd like you to write an article on 5 things you can do if your friend is feeling suicidal." I said, "Okay." So I wrote an article, sent it in. And the next day he called me back and said, "Yeah, this is good, but we changed our mind. We want it to be 5 things to do if you're feeling suicidal." So that's different. I'll write a new article. I wrote a new article. I sent it in. He goes, "This is great. We'll use it." I go, "Okay." So there's a 4-month gap between when you submit to a magazine to when it comes out. And then during that time, my
Okay.
niece committed suicide. And so I wrote a third article about what it's like to be left behind, because by that time I already had like 6 people that had committed suicide in my life. And so I knew what it was like to be left behind. And so I combined all three of those together. And that article is called Hope. And I included that in the Second Chances book because I wanted people to have the information, what you can actually do, practical things you can actually do. And one of those things is to reach out. But even if you're on your own, I gave you something that I thought was really important, and I'll give you the quick solution. I said, even if you are alone, you can't, find other people to talk to at the moment. I said, go to a mirror, look into your eyes, because as they say, the eyes are the windows to the soul. They really are the windows to the soul. You can see your higher self in the mirror, and you can talk to that part of you that can see the bigger picture and can um, open up and comfort you to the extent of getting past this critical point of fear, which is usually what's happening, and to allow you to take that next step, which ideally is to reach out to someone to let them know what's going on with you, and to, if they can't help you, to ask them to help you find. And don't forget the 988 number, which is a toll-free number you can call for 24 hours a day to get some help. So there's always help around. You just have to trust that it's there and trust that you can get it.
Very briefly, self-talk has been mentioned in a lot of circles as being very helpful. And just to reiterate what you just said about looking in the mirror and talking to yourself, that's a really powerful tool, I think. Is that
Yeah, it is very much so. And um, I got to say something else. So
okay?
you talked about depression, and depression is anger turned inward. We often feel powerless about our situations or about what's happening around us in life, and that makes us angry because we don't like to feel powerless. We want to feel like
Right,
we have a control of a situation, but there's some things we really don't control. But in the Get Unstuck Now book, I put a process. It's a written process, but I've done them verbally with people. But it's a written process for you to let go of what's upsetting you, the temporary upset, and it's called a soul letter. And there's 7 levels to it because literally that's how our emotions are stacked within us. And what I tell people is I've written more of those to me than to anybody else because no one is as upset with you as you, because you know every single time you made a mistake. And
right.
believe it or not, you've kept track. And so if your self talk is, oh, you're an idiot, why'd you do that? And by the way, I've said those words. And the point is, your subconscious mind's listening to everything you say. So if you are critical of yourself, and again, if you're critical in general, guess what? You're more critical of yourself. And it doesn't help to say, well, look, I criticize myself too. I'm criticizing you. No, that's not good. That's not productive. So in those soul letter process, it helps you to release the upset, whatever it is. And I tell people, because I had one client who I said, your homework is to write a soul letter. And it was to her husband. And she called me back a couple days later and she said, how long should these be? I said, well, how long is your letter so far? She goes, I'm on page 30. I'm like, oh my God. She said, no, I'm still in the anger section. And I said, well, that's way too much. You can't solve a whole lifetime worth of things in one letter. Pick a topic or an event and then write the soul letter about that. And then come back. You might have to write 10, 20 soul letters. You never know. But eventually it will help to free up the emotions. And, one of the things that we do is we make bad decisions when our head is full of static. And the static oftentimes is unexpressed emotions. And that's something you really want to pay attention to because you want to find a way to release it. That's the soul letter is one of those ways. And obviously therapy is another. And there's a whole bunch of others that I talk about. But the idea is if you can find a way to let that go, you clear some of that out of your head. Guess what? You can think more clearly. You can make better decisions. You can move forward because being stuck is usually unexpressed emotions that are just clogging the way, like making a dam in a river. And so if you do this process and therapy, whatever it might be that you use, it will release that and clear the way so that you can flow and get clear to your ideas of what you need to do and how to move forward, because your thinking will be better. So what I encourage you to do is find a way, whether it's my soul letters or therapy or other books, because there's lots of other good books out there, to find a way to make your life better and release that emotion. And there's lots of other things. I could go on for hours or days on why we have all this clogged emotion within us. But the idea is, once you decide that you want to do that, there's ways out of it. So just remember that there is a way to make it better. So I don't know if we're going to keep talking, because unfortunately, we've lost our host. So I will just say, again, get on now, the simple guide to restart your life. Oh, I've got a copy of it here. There's one of them right there. Hard to read, but okay, it's there. And then another book I wrote, Keep on Believing, which is stories of inspiration, courage, and triumph, which again shows you how other people have learned to get past life's challenges. Oh, I've even got one in Spanish. Libérate, la guía sencilla para reiniciar tu vida, if Spanish is your first language. There's others coming out. There's other books I wrote, and there's other good books out there in general. All I can say is we'll post these in the chat, and we'll post them underneath in the comments. But if you find that you're in this situation, please consider that this is a way to make your life better. This is a way to get things out. And even if you don't know how to do it, there are people who do, and we can help you. So don't forget the 988 emergency number. Here's my books.
John, this is wonderful, and I'd like to come back to this and talk about getting unstuck and restart our conversation on Saturday with the emotional trauma, just what you're describing now. Because my feeling is this would be huge in even opening the door to begin to reach out for therapy, or to establish a relationship with a therapist. Am I on the right out there?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We're going to come back this upcoming Saturday. We'll be back on the actual Saturday morning live at 11 instead of Thursday to do another show. And we'll pick up there with exactly what John's talking about now, with the emotional block, and how to begin to work through that to make traveling on that path to healing possible. John,
Absolutely.
thank you so very, very much.
All right. I look forward to it.
All right. Have a great